Hi, this is the 13th Wolfman, and this is my review for Wild Eye Releasing. Wild Eye Releasing sent over this movie, The History of Rock and Roll Comics. I'll be completely honest, I was excited. Oh man, there's so many words when I found out that I was going to get a chance to review this movie. The reason I was excited is because back in the 80s, I had long hair and I was slimmed down to about 185. I was deep into the hard rock and heavy metal scene. I was listening to Van Halen, Poison, Motley Crue, Rat, but I was also listening to Queensryche, Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth. And there was this little company out of California that was putting out unauthorized versions, or stories, or unauthorized biographies of rock bands. And they were getting nailed and sued for it at all times. And that comic was Rock and Roll Comics. Check this out, man. I dug into the vault for you this time. I got my Rock and Roll Comics right here. I bought these back in the 80s, man. This is Kiss #1. That's the front. That's the back. Motley Crue #4. The Who #7. I didn't always buy the most recent one because not every time there was a band on there that I really like. They had New Kids or something like that one time. Bon Jovi. Metallica, or as we pronounce it, Metallica. The Stones. Guns N' Roses. Alice Cooper. Queensryche. ZZ Top. And the Lizard King himself, The Doors. Those are my Rock and Roll Comics, and this is the story of Rock and Roll Comics. Todd Loren, this guy, he had this thing for the First Amendment, and he went out of his way to make sure that the First Amendment was there for you to use. He made these comics, no matter what band they were, and he put them out. And the bands like Skid Row sued, so they couldn't put the comic out. New Kids sued. That actually went to court, and they won that case against New Kids because it wasn't that they weren't breaking any rules. They were breaking a trademark rule if they actually used the trademarked logo, but they could do a likeness. They could write the story, and it's all in here. The history of Rock and Roll Comics. In '92, the poor guy was Todd Loren was murdered, and I think the comic was only around for about 5 or 6 years. And in that 5 or 6 years, they put out something like 500 comics. This is such a cool story. You really, I mean, if you were into the hard rock metal scene, if you like comics, the history of Rock and Roll Comics is the one to check out. You know, I mean, as you see, I dug those comics out of my storage. You know, it's just amazing. I still have them. Those are the only ones I have. But yeah, and they show them in here. Right there's the Guns N' Roses. There's another Metallica one. They did a couple. They would do like if something happened, they would to a band. They would do a second run with more stories. You know, I think they did like 4 Metallicas and like 2 Guns N' Roses, and there might be more. I mean, check this out though. Wild Eye Releasing. You get interviews with the artists, and you get to hear the stories that relate to Todd Loren. His father's on here because his father was his co-partner in the business. It's just very well done, and you got a Rock and Roll Comics art gallery. You get news stories, you get trailers, TV clips, commercials, alternate and extended interviews. liner notes from Rock and Roll Comics by J. Allen Sanford, and you get this little booklet right here that just shows you. There's the back of the Guns N' Roses I just showed you. Yeah, so this is definitely, what would I give this? It's a documentary, so that's kind of hard to say, but because it's something that I feel passionate about, and I really loved the way they presented this. They told the story of Todd Loren. You know, you got Alice Cooper right there, he's in this, Mojo Nixon's in it. They have an audio tape of Gene Simmons talking to Todd Loren about doing the Kiss comic, because they never paid any of these guys any royalties or anything for using the image. They just sat down, drew out the comic, wrote the story, and bing bang boom, and it was out. It's just a well done documentary. I would have liked it to be a little bit longer, so I'm only going to give it like 3 1/4 chainsaws. But it is informational. It has a lot of good stuff to tell you. I'll tell you this right now. Check this out. From Wild Eye Releasing, the history of rock and roll comics, revolutionary comics. I give this 3 1/4 chainsaws. I'm the 13th Wolfman, and I'm on the prowl.